Good morning, everybody. This is Tim with the Right Rudder Marketing Podcast. Today we have on as a special guest. We always have special guests here on the podcast. We have Andrew Rachmell. He is actually from Purdue Global. Purdue Global is one of the leading providers for university programs in aviation. So I won't give too much of an introduction. I'll kind of let him give himself an introduction. So maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Hey, good morning, Tim. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing some great work in the industry. My name's Andrew Rachmell. I've been with Purdue and Purdue Global for many years. I'm a director of educational partnerships, and with that role, I wear several different hats. I establish partnerships with corporations, organizations in the aviation and aerospace industry. And I also am responsible for business development in growing the professional flight and aviation management degrees at Purdue Global, which is the online arm of Purdue University. Before that, or many years ago, I was a flight instructor and then a charter pilot and then a regional pilot, a pilot for a regional airline out of Miami International. I've been in higher education for just about 17 years.
Wow, that's a good intro. So so I was actually going to ask that, how do you get involved with, I guess, the aviation industry and all that stuff? So it looks like you were a pilot first, then somehow you, I guess, migrated to working in the education sector. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey of, how you even got started working at Purdue, or even if you had anything before that? What prompted the switch from going from, I guess, career pilot, being working the regionals, being a CFI and all that stuff, to working at Purdue?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a direct connect. I basically got out of the airline industry flying. I got out of flying in the early 90s when many airlines went out of business, and it was a very tumultuous time as a pilot in the world of aviation. At that point, I was already in my early 30s, and I actually transitioned into an entirely different field. I produced documentaries and television programs for about 12 years. And it was after that time frame that I decided that higher education was really my calling. I enjoy helping individuals guide them towards the career that they're passionate about. Certainly my foundation in the world of aviation and my passion for aviation really allowed me to help folks and guide them in the world of aviation and in many other industries. And it was about 5 years ago that my role at the university pivoted to the role I have now, which is specifically to grow the professional flight and aviation management degrees at Purdue Global, because it was at that time that we were launching those degrees, and I seemed to be the right person for that job.
Wow, it's a pretty good introduction there. Um, so you mentioned that you were in the airline industry, and it was a very tumultuous time. And I think if you've spent any time in the aviation industry, we know this. We know it's kind of cyclical. There's booms and busts. I think I think COVID-19 just a couple of years ago kind of showed that. You also had the recession of 2008. And there's then of course 9/11 just before that as well. So there's always ups and downs, and I think right now we're kind of riding this upward trend. At least that's what I like to think about. There was a small hiring freeze last year towards the end of the year, and now it looks like it's opened back up. But the aviation industry in general, I think, has this kind of cyclical pattern, right? Depending on how consumer demand is, depending how the market is. I guess you work with a lot of career pilots, people that are really getting to aviation. I'm sure that might be a concern to some of them. What kind of advice do you have to offer to people kind of getting into the industry, and like just in general, like, if I don't know anything about aviation, I don't know anything, whatsoever, but I want to be a career pilot, what type of advice would you give to kind of ride the storm, so to speak?
Hey, Tim, that's a really good question. And that hits home for me because I did not have a mentor at the time that I left the aviation industry in the early 90s. And I think if I had a mentor at that time, the mentor might have suggested that I just stick it out because it will recover, as it always does. The world can't live without, aircraft and transportation and flying, right? And but I didn't have a mentor. So the advice I would give to anybody, any individual in life, not to mention just, pilots, is first find a mentor. Find somebody 5 years ahead of you in that industry, 10 years ahead of you, however many years, somebody who might have gone through what you're experiencing now in terms of crossroads, perhaps, challenges, and just, ready to make a decision, but you're not sure. If there's so many organizations out there that are designed to help individuals through this challenging time, crossroads, if you were. So I would say get a mentor. I do think, and all the third-party studies show that there is a great demand for pilots over the next 20 years. And I think everybody realizes that we can't live without commercial aviation. At the consumer level, right? So I'm confident that if one is concerned about whether they should pursue a career as a professional pilot, I'm confident they will enjoy it. That career provides so many benefits. And frankly, I don't think I've met an airline pilot that has not enjoyed their career. So I hope that helps.
Oh yeah, yeah, that helps a lot. I think I touched on one point there too. Like you mentioned getting a mentor. And I'll just kind of speak on that just on my experience too. Like I wouldn't be where I am today without my mentors and my own career. So even before I got into aviation, I was in my career was manufacturing, and to get to where I was like a department manager, director by the time I finished. I wouldn't have gotten to where I got without a mentor. Like I remember my first year working in the factory as like a entry level technician, and actually a quality manager took me under his wing, and he let me sit through the audits, he let me sit through like the paperwork, let me sit through like when the FDA came, we were able to like I was there, I wasn't the one talking at that time. Eventually I was the guy talking, but I was able to like learn from him very quickly. And even today, I'm growing this business, the marketing agency business, growing other people's businesses. I've have mentors to help me along the way, and I think that's so important for whether you're a career track student, you're going through like your private pilot, instrument, commercial, all the way to becoming an instructor. I think even instructors need mentors, right? Too.
Oh yeah.
Um, and to even like running, maybe running a flight school. I think, people need, to have some type of consulting agency or some type of mentorship program. And there's things like that, like FASANA, for example, Flight School Association of North America. We just came. So the reason why Andrew's on this podcast right now, we just actually met at the NAFI, National Association of Flight Instructors. They had a summit just a few weeks, I think last week actually, if I put my dates right. So, I mean, a lot of it is, getting into the industry, networking, finding a good mentor, a good person to really talk about your business, talk about, your career, and how to really grow that. So I really think that's really great advice there.
Yeah.
You touched on, you know, being mentors for pilots and career pilots, especially in the commercial track. You highlighted that there's a lot of good benefits of becoming a pilot. Can you kind of, I'm sure you give this pitch all day to new students that are going into the industry, but what are some of the benefits, just for our new viewers out there, what are some of the benefits of becoming a pilot? Why should people consider, and I answer this question every day and with all our flight schools, but I'd like to hear it from another perspective. Um, what's some of the benefits of entering into the aviation industry, and why should someone consider a career in aviation, whether it's a career track pilot, a hobby flyer, or just or maybe even starting a flight school? Why should someone even bother with an aviation industry?
Well, I think like any industry, first and foremost, it has to resonate from within. Having a passion for that, I think is your baseline foundation. If you don't have a passion for it, then I think it's going to fade away. Um, and if you do have a passion for it, like myself, I took a deep dive into aviation. I was a career changer, but I knew as a little boy, I knew that, flying was something that I was fascinated by. I was fascinated by the physics of flying, right? And just the whole idea of that we can fly in this machine in the air, I thought was fascinating as a young child. Um, and of course, as an adult, whether you're going to be a recreational pilot or a career pilot, there's no other feeling in the world really than having the freedom to fly from point A to point B, and just the scenery and the from up above, the quietness from up above. I still enjoy today, even as a passenger on a commercial flight, just to look out the window at 35,000 feet and see the landscape, right? It's just truly remarkable, especially in the United States. We have such a beautiful country. Uh, and of course, all the other benefits, being able to make a very nice income, having many days off per month, being able to travel the world on somebody else's dime, and really just enjoy the whole the charge that one gets from being in control of a machine that's flying at 35,000 feet. I think it's just a remarkable feeling, and it never goes away. I don't know
Goes away.
anybody that gets bored of it. So hopefully those were some of the reasons why I got into it, I think. And what's really ironic is that I was hijacked to Cuba when I was 8 years old, and yet that did not deter me from
Wow.
becoming a pilot. So it's kind of interesting.
Wow, that was a that was a random card out of nowhere. That's hijacked Cuba. Okay, um, so you heard it from Andrew. So if you're thinking about your marketing, I'm just kind of pivot a little bit because we are a marketing agency. If you're thinking about marketing your website, doing your social media, he just gave a lot of great pointers as far as how to entice prospective students to become leads, to become students at your flight school. These are all, I think we all know this innately, the passion for aviation, our love of flight, just experiencing it firsthand, in the cockpit, and looking outside the window, just amazing, And I think those are really some great words from Andrew as far as why people should become a pilot. So, take your notes and just keep, write it down, put it on your website, put in your social media posts, whatever you do. Good stuff there. Let's get into kind of some of the meat and potatoes here. So, you work with Purdue Global. You work actually with a few of our flight school partners as well. I think there's, give a quick shout out to some of our flight schools. We have Red Arrow, all the way in Santa Teresa. They do have a Purdue Global. I believe they have a Purdue Global program, embedded with their flight training, with their flight school. There's also Universal Flight Training on Sarasota is also with you guys. I think they just started just a few months ago, actually. So we're really, we've actually worked indirectly with each other. So it's the first time we've collaborated on a podcast. So it's really cool to actually get this going. So we've actually had to paste your logo and the Purdue Global stuff on on our websites, and kind of gives you some marketing for our students to say, hey, this is, you can pursue a degree program, whatever it is. So let's kind of get into that. Let's talk about what is let's pretend I don't know anything about, running a flight school. Let's pretend I just saw, maybe I was browsing maybe the competitor website and I saw that, hey, they have a Purdue Global program. And I said, I want this in my flight school. Um, can you tell us what having a Purdue Global program actually entails? And then we can probably, after that, talk about how to get it implemented.
Yep, sure, Tim. So first, let me just mention to the audience that Purdue Global has just about 100 flight school partners around the United States, and many of those partners have multiple locations. So we're in at least 150 cities in the United States. We have pretty good representation. There are some pockets where we have no representation, and I'm always looking for, a good flight school in those areas. The if you can repeat that question again, I'm sorry, I lost track.
What in general does it entail to have a Purdue Global program at a flight school? What is it like? What is Purdue Global and the aviation program for flight schools? So I'm a
Right.
flight school owner. I'm
So
thinking about Purdue Global, but I don't really know any. Pretend like I'm walking to you up in the booth just a couple weeks ago.
yeah,
I own XYZ Flight School over in Wichita, Kansas.
yeah,
I saw one of my competitor schools, maybe in Kansas City, have Purdue Global.
sure.
What is I'm kind of interested in maybe doing this in my school, but I don't really know what it is.
Sure.
So
So great. So Purdue University, let's start a little bit about our history, and that will help understand why you would probably want to have a partnership with Purdue Global. So Purdue University is a nonprofit public university, land grant university in Indiana. We're about an hour northwest of Indianapolis, and we're a college town in West Lafayette. The history, though, with Purdue University as it relates to aviation, we are the oldest collegiate aviation program in the United States. We were the first college in the U.S. to have our own airport in 1930. Amelia Earhart was on our faculty in 1935. 27 NASA astronauts came from Purdue, more than any college in the U.S., including Neil Armstrong. 27 astronauts came from Purdue. And so with this rich history and this legendary program in aviation, we decided about 5 years ago to make it more accessible to more students around the United States, because not everybody wants to relocate and study in Indiana. Not everybody can get into this program. It's a very hard program on campus to get into. And so we wanted to provide accessibility to the program. And so Purdue University owns Purdue Global. And Purdue Global, again, is a nonprofit public university joined at the hips with Purdue University. And so we decided that the curriculum would be created by the faculty at the main campus, right? The professors who teach this rigorous program on campus would create the curriculum for the online courses, so the rigors of the program are built in. And then we go around and look for really good flight schools around the country who obviously have safety in mind at all times, train students above the minimums. In other words, they're not just training them to pass a check ride. They are providing them additional insight and information to make them the best aviator as possible, right? So we go around the country, or I go around the country specifically, and vet flight schools and really look for flight schools where the leadership of that flight school, the culture of that flight school, embraces the ideals of what Purdue and Purdue Global is all about. And so if it's a good fit, because if it's a good fit, then we establish that partnership. So I'll stop there. You might have some follow-up questions as it relates to that, but that might help.
okay, that was a big chunk of information there. Um, let's start with. So you said that you okay. One of the things I caught in that kind of text you just said here is that you're kind of selective with the flight schools that you partner with. So you obviously, what I heard is, they want people to be training above the minimums. They have a really big emphasis on safety. What are some other key features of a target or maybe an ideal flight school that would partner with Purdue Global? Like, for example, if I'm, I don't know, let's say I'm a one man, one plane operation. Am I fit to work with Purdue Global? I mean, what's the
Right.
ideal or
Sure.
what's the perfect flight school to partner with Purdue Global?
Sure. Well, we have flight schools that have small fleets of 5 aircraft, and we have large flight schools that have fleets of 75 aircraft or more. So, and everything in between, right? If you just had one aircraft, it's doubtful that we would partner with you, not because, you're probably, offering great training, but you'd be very limited in being able to provide students the ability to fly frequently, like 3 to 5 times a week, which is what we're looking for. We're really an accelerated pathway, and I'll get into that probably later in our discussion. But if you've got one aircraft and that aircraft is down for maintenance, how in the world would you be able to support a Purdue Global professional flight student who is looking to obtain private instrument commercial multi-engine CFI in 12 months to 18 months, with the latest being 2 years, right? So 12 to 24 months. If you've got one aircraft, that's going to be very difficult to accomplish, assuming you've got other students as a flight school, not just our student, right? So you can see that. But in addition to all of what I've said so far, we're looking for flight schools that appreciate the importance of a college degree in the world of professional flying, because none of us have a crystal ball on our health, and a college degree really provides a safety net should a professional pilot lose their first class medical, and it happens all the time. So a college degree is really a safety net should you lose your first class medical, and it's also provides you more marketability to get that airline job that you might be looking for. I know in my day, you had to have a bachelor's degree to be hired by these legacy airlines, these major airlines. Sure, they have done away with that since COVID because of the desperate need to fill pilot slots for the airlines, but we are seeing that even coming back. We see the major airlines continue to prefer that their pilots have bachelor degrees. So if you're a flight school out there and you have that culture in mind where anybody walking through your door that is seeking to become a professional pilot, we're looking for flight schools that at least share the opportunity with that student. Let that student know that you're a partner with Purdue Global's aviation program, and explain the reasons why you're a partner with Purdue Global, because you appreciate the importance of a college degree as a professional pilot. We realize not everybody wants to get a degree, and we don't expect that flight school for every student at that flight school to pursue a college degree. But at the very least, we would hope they would promote Purdue Global, and that they would promote the importance of a college degree. I think that's really it.
Let's talk about accelerated programs. So one of the things you said that you really look for in flight schools is having an accelerated program. So um, I know what that kind of means. I'm pretty sure most flight schools know what that means, but let's kind of go through the basics here, just in case there's maybe there's a prospective student thinking about doing Purdue Global. They just see this podcast or listening. What is an accelerated program in relation to flight training, and what does that entail? If I'm let's say I'm a student pilot and I want to get into, let's say I want to be an airline pilot or I want to be a corporate jet pilot, and I hear that I need to take an accelerated aviation program. What does that mean?
Well, when a student walks through the doors of a local flight school, if that flight school is in a position to provide the aircraft, the flight instructor, and the opportunity for that student to fly a minimum of 3 times a week, given that they have other students to serve as well, right? So if the availability of aircraft and the flight instructor is there so that student can fly at least 3 times a week, then that student is going to efficiently and effectively, cost effectively, go through their flight training. Flying any less than 3 times a week will end up costing the student more money. I think everybody who owns a flight school certainly understands that. And so we're looking at our program, and we refer to it as an accelerated pathway because there's nothing on the academic side that will interfere with the student through their flight training, because that is not true in a traditional campus collegiate aviation program. So we devised this model that nothing on the academic side will slow up a student through flight training. A student can literally go from private to instrument, can pass their check ride from private, and the very next day start instrument, can pass their check ride on commercial, right? And the very next day, or pass their check ride on instrument, and the very next day start commercial, and so forth and so on. So the idea is, like I mentioned earlier, going from private through CFI in 12 months, give or take. We realize that if you're a flight school in Florida, Texas, Arizona, where the weather is great year-round, that doing it in 12 months is viable. I have flight schools that's what they advertise, 12 months, 12 months. If it takes the student 13 months or 14 months, hey, that's okay. But if you're a flight school, in the northern part of the United States, we don't expect that 12 months is realistic. Maybe it's 2 years. We're not kicking anybody out of the program if it takes them longer. But the advantage to coming to Purdue Global is that a student can live at home, save money, train locally, complete their flight training, and simultaneously study at Purdue Global, taking their online courses so they graduate with a bachelor's degree in 3 years or less. Now, we all know that a bachelor's degree is a 4-year program, but the student at Purdue Global in aviation will be able to graduate in 3 years or less with a degree in their hand and probably have close to 1,500 hours during those 3 years. That's right, 1,500 hours, so they can be somewhat airline ready, right? They can qualify for that ATP, CTP opportunity. That's the next phase. I'll stop. You might have some more questions about that.
Let's talk about the actual program for a bit. So you mentioned that the student has to, obviously they're doing 3 to 5 lessons a week at the local school. They're at home, in their hometown, and then the flight school is off. A flight school that's partnered with Purdue Global is they're able to start taking classes. What do these classes entail? What type of degree programs do you have? How do you ensure that if it's an online program, it's the exact same coursework and the same? I think you said the words you use, like it's the same, like rudimentary or something like that, or the same like oomph from a in-person college program versus a remote, maybe at a flight school or online. What's the program entail, and how do we make sure that's a good quality program?
Yeah, great question, Tim. Well, what I think the word I might have used was rigorous, right?
Rigorous. There you go. Yeah.
That the faculty at the main campus created the online curriculum. And I mentioned that online curriculum because the flight school is able to use the syllabus that they're already using. They don't have to change their syllabus for flight training. Okay? What we do, so courses, so the aviation programs, for example, the Bachelor of Science in Professional Flight is going to have courses like transport category aircraft systems, advanced flight path management, large aircraft systems, managerial economics in aviation, aviation finance, airline operations, human factors in aviation, aviation law, aviation safety problems, business aviation management, right? These are just an example of a good example of the type of courses the student will have in the professional flight degree. And in essence, it's going to make them a better aviator having these courses. It's going to make the transition for them when they go into the airlines. Of course, the airlines are going to train them as well, but it's going to make that transition easier, right? If you have a course on transport category aircraft systems, that's really going to help you when you transition to the airlines. So, in the aviation management degree, you're not going to have a lot of those courses that relate to flying. You're going to have courses that relate more to the business side, the operation side of the aviation industry, allowing a student to prepare themselves to work on the operation side of an airline or the operation side of an aircraft manufacturer, whether it's Boeing or Airbus, for example, or Piper aircraft, right? You're going to have the opportunity and the knowledge base to work as an airport manager or even to open up your own flight school someday, or buying and selling aircraft. That's a big industry, right? Buying and selling aircraft. So all of those types of jobs and roles, the aviation management degree really lends itself to. I'll stop. Keep asking questions.
I think we kind of hit the dead horse here with why flight schools should choose to do a program, and maybe if you have any commentary as far as that, maybe make a pitch to them, say like, hey, if you're in a flight school that's kind of considering X, Y, Z, this is reasons why you should consider Purdue Global because of ABC.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm glad you reminded me. That sort of was part and parcel to your original question a few minutes ago, but I got carried away. My apologies. So,
no, you're good. You're good.
look, if you have flight students coming through your door, obviously as a flight school, that's what you're going to have, and you appreciate the importance of a college degree, partnering with Purdue Global will resonate. The reputation, the brand of Purdue in the world of aviation and aerospace is at the very top. If you look at any third-party studies on the internet about the most rigorous or the best or the top collegiate aviation programs, Purdue is going to come up every single time in the top 5, if not the top, if not the very first. So that well-known program and the reputation Purdue has in the marketplace can only help if you're a flight school to put that on your website and to say that your flight school associates with Purdue Global and the name Purdue, which resonates so highly with airlines today. And I go to aviation conferences all the time, and the airline recruiters at aviation conferences come to my table all the time and ask me, Andrew, please help get me in front of your students, right? And I ask why, even though I kind of know the answer, but I ask why because they say they make our best pilots at the airline. They make our best pilots. And again, that's part of the history and the rigorous program from the academic side and the quality of training they're going to get from their local flight school, of course, and the rigorous program that's built into it. So if you've got our name associated with your flight school, it stands to reason that more folks might want to explore training at your facility and might bring more folks to inquire at your facility about the partnership with Purdue Global and the aviation programs at Purdue Global. And as a partner of Purdue Global, all of your employees, all of your family members, all of the students and all of their family members are entitled to a significant tuition discount off all programs at Purdue Global, all undergraduate programs, all graduate programs, or pretty much the majority of the programs. There might be one or two that's not covered, but for all intent and purpose, we have 175 programs where the tuition discount would apply. So even if the student at the flight school doesn't want to get a degree, that student's family member who might be going to college or want to continue their education is entitled to a tuition discount. So the benefits are enormous for the family members and the student and the employees. So these are some of the additional reasons why you might want to partner with Purdue Global.
That's something new. I didn't know about the tuition discount for family members, and I kind of knew it for like maybe the students, but not the family members. That's a pretty good pretty good plug. So,
Yeah.
so if you have a Purdue Global program at your flight school, then you are offering a benefit of education that expands the reach of your just your own flight school, but also to your students, your students' families, your families, and allow them to pursue a even a master's degree, a graduate level degree at Purdue. So that's very very insightful. I didn't even know that. So one of the things you mentioned there is like if you search aviation collegiate degree programs, you're number one on top, or you're on the tippy top of search results. That's kind of what we specialize here in Right Rudder Marketing, right? Let's kind of take a small pivot there. How did I think me as a marketer, I kind of know there's a lot of it that has to do with the brand, right? So, how did Purdue Global kind of evolve the brand? How does it kind of like what's their take on marketing? I know you guys run some paid advertising, for example. As a business development kind of department person, manager, you obviously have a role in part of the marketing and also part of the sales aspect. So we'll kind of get into the business operations a little bit for a bit. Um, what's Purdue Global's, or what's your take? Maybe not Purdue Global per se, but maybe Andrew's take on marketing, and how did you guys get to be on the top precipice of college programs for aviation?
Yeah, Tim, let me just clarify something, and I will answer your question. But what I was alluding to or referring to before isn't about whether we show up in search results. I'm simply saying if you put in your browser best collegiate aviation program or top 15 studies, like a study, a third-party study that evaluates collegiate aviation programs, and now they created the top 10 list, right? That if you look at that top 10 list, Purdue will generally be number one, maybe number two. If you look at any third-party top 10, top 15, top 25 list. And
Mhm.
that's what I was referring to. I think that's slightly different than, a paid search type of thing. We're not paying for that. That's just
Mhm.
third-party organizations that are taking the time to do a study. Um, Purdue Global does a lot of social media marketing. I know that, but they don't do any social media marketing or paid marketing, I should say, specific to a program. They do it as an entity in large, 175 programs or, other messages that are coming across to come back and get your degree. But they don't really they don't really focus on specific degrees per se. I'm not in the marketing department. I don't have all of the facts and figures about that, but I know for the aviation program that we create awareness, certainly because I go to a lot of events, but we rely on our 100 flight school partners out there to share that message that I alluded to earlier, right? So we grew from one flight school 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, to 100 flight school partners in 150 cities, and it's really that growth of flight school partnership that is part and parcel to the growth of our program in aviation, both aviation management and professional flight. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Um, let's talk about. So you mentioned a lot of the way that you has been growing is due to kind of like cumulative effect of you started with one school 4 years ago, and then over time that kind of rolled into 100 flight schools plus, and you're now at 150 cities. And as it gets bigger, and names kind of more notorious or kind of infamous now, and people recognize that the brand recognition, right? It starts to become a very high quality program because people want to get involved now. People know what it is. So I guess I'm going to kind of lead into. You have some questions in the comments. We're going to get to that soon. But first, let's talk about, if you're a flight school owner, how do I get a Purdue Global program in my flight school? What are the steps that I need to do as a flight school owner to get the program in my school? How do I reach you? Who do I talk to? Is there an application program or application process I have to go through? Is there like an audit I have to finish, or some type of paperwork I gotta do, or what's the process? They start from zero, then go to 100.
It's a very simple process. Reach out to me, right? I'm the guy. Reach out to me. You can call me, you can email me, you can text me, right? So reach out to me. It's basically, I don't know if you want to post it at the end of this, my contact information. I'm happy to post phone, email, whatever you need. So reach out to me. We'll have a conversation, and which will probably take about an hour, give or take, right? I will send you typically a link to fill out a questionnaire, so you can put in writing some of the things we went over and some other things, some basic information that you would expect we would want to know about your flight school, like how many aircraft in your fleet, glass cockpit or round dial, what is the age of your fleet, right? Are you Part 61 or 141 or both? Are you VA approved? There's many, many things that we'll be asking to learn more about your flight school. Some of those things I'll know from the conversation we have over the phone, or we set up a meet like we're doing right now, a Google Meet or a Zoom. And then I will likely either come out to your facility shortly thereafter, or certainly you've got a website that I can see a lot of things as well. So the process is not long. It could take as little as a week, really. It can take as little as a week or 2 weeks. It's not a long process. And I certainly come out to the flight school. I try to come out to each and every flight school once a year if I can, and sometimes many more. I have flight schools that I visit every 30 to 60 days. There are very large flight schools that have a starting class of 25 or 35 students every 30 days, and I'm there during their orientation, those student orientations every 30 days for the new class. I'm there sharing the opportunity and describing the partnership that we have with that flight school. So again, back to your question, it's an easy process, but you got to reach out to me first. That is the best way.
Okay, so I have your email kind of set in here, and I have your phone number. I'm going to show it in here. I'm not sure if this is the right one, so have to correct it for me. But I believe this is your email. It's Rachmell, Arachmell at PurdueGlobal.edu. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
And then I have on your email signature, it was this number, 561-703-0480.
That's right. That's my cell number. You can call me 7 days a week, and you can text me there as well.
I'll text you at midnight on Friday. I guess this is a hard question. I'm not sure if I want to ask this one, but let's talk about costs for a bit. So for a flight school, there's two obvious costs, right? There's tuition costs for the student. I think that's one of the questions that we had earlier. We'll get to that next. But let's talk about, just for the flight school perspective, what's the costs, or what's the is it just a partnership and we enroll students for you and then we get a kickback, or is there a deal that we have to do? Like, what's that entail?
Yeah. Also good question, Tim. No, there's no financial remuneration from Purdue Global to the flight school. So we are at somewhat of an arm's length distance from each and every flight school. So let me explain. That flight school is using their own syllabus. They're charging the rates that they would normally charge anybody. We have nothing to do with what they charge students and the terms that they charge with students. Whatever insurance they have is what they have. We're not asking them to increase their insurance and their liability. And so the student will pay the flight school for flight training just like they always do. and they will pay Purdue Global for the online academic courses. Now, the online academic courses and the program could be funded by, for example, Title IV federal financial aid. So if the student wants to apply for FAFSA, that's an acronym, FAFSA, and they qualify for grants and or loans, they can use that funding to pay for the online courses at Purdue Global. They can also work with third-party lenders or the local bank to fund the courses at Global or even the flight training, right? So there's no exchange between Purdue Global and the flight school or vice versa in terms of money. No money is changing hands.
I think it's a really great program. Just, if you're a flight school and you have, over 5 planes, you could easily partner with Mr. Andrew over here, and you can offer degree programs. And really, it's kind of a win-win. It sounds like it'd be a win-win from both perspectives. Obviously, the student gets to walk away, or win-win from all three perspectives. From you have three kind of players in the field here. You have Purdue Global, you have the flight school, and you have the student. So the student walks away with a degree and also all their pilot certificates if they do the accelerated program. Purdue Global walks away with obviously the benefit of offering an education and the tuition from that. And the flight school gets their hours, gets to maintain their fleet, gets to build their student base, and it's also great marketing for a flight school to offer this program at a school. So one of the questions, we're going to go to the questions, and after that we'll kind of go to call to actions from Andrew and kind of get more, I guess, more advertising for you. So I guess one of the questions that was in the chat here was, let's see if I can show this here, how to do this. Show once, there it is. Okay. This says, great presentation for a Purdue household is mine. Exciting. Can you review cost and or scholarship opportunities for potential students? So I think you mentioned a little bit about FAFSA. You can apply for federal aid loan. How about scholarship opportunities, baseline kind of ballpark figures for tuition? What's that look like for students?
Yep. Thank you from that audience member. So as I mentioned earlier, the student's getting 20% off the undergraduate program. If the student comes in with no previous college courses and completes this program, between the 20% off cost savings, and we're going to be giving that student 45 transfer credits. You heard me right, 45 transfer credits for having obtained with the FAA those 5 flight certificates and ratings: private instrument, commercial, multi-engine, CFI. If you combine the savings between the 45 credits we give the student and the 20% off all remaining credits to graduate, the student saves $28,400. $28,400. Now, at the end of the day, what's the net cost? Because that's really what's important, right? So the net cost to the student or the household, excluding flight training, because remember, flight schools charge different amounts of money, right? But just the academics for the degree should cost the student approximately $44,000 all in. That's for the academics, not the flight training. The $44,000, and I say all in, that's books and fees, completing the degree in 3 years or less. So if the student's coming in with previous college credits, that's going to lower that cost to less than $44,000, and it's going to reduce the graduation time way less, right? Instead of graduating in 3 years, that student might graduate in 2 years or 1.5 years. So I think I've answered the audience question in terms of what would the cost be. Clearly, you pay as you go along. Nobody's asking you to write a check for $44,000. You pay like any college program. You pay per term. You pay every 10 weeks. The student will be taking 2 courses every 10 weeks in our program.
Got it. Okay, so if flight training cost, PPL to, let's say, CFI is roughly, it varies for flight school, but let's just put a ballpark number, $50,000 to $120,000. That's kind of a good ballpark, I think. And then for the degree program, it's going to be about, you said $44,000, but then you walk away with a bachelor's degree. So that's actually relatively, think about this from a, college perspective. There are students going into like $500,000 in debt just to get a just to get a bachelor's degree or something like that. A couple 100,000, depending on what type of university you go to. So it's it's actually very affordable, depending on how you look at it. So put that out there.
In my experience, it's the lowest cost program for a bachelor's degree in professional flight. It's the lowest cost opportunity. Most of our flight schools, I know you gave a big range there. I would say the majority of our flight schools around the country, to go from private, instrument, commercial, multi-CFI, is anywhere from 55 to 85. 90% of all of our flight schools fall in that 55 to 85 range. Obviously, some charge a little bit more. Usually when they charge a little bit more, they're also getting maybe a CFII and an MAI. But 55 to 85 would be a really solid range.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I said 150 because there's some accelerated programs, I won't say the name, but that charge $120,000 for the whole ticket. I'm like, okay, well, that's how you do it. But yeah, if you go to a Part 61 school, that's actually a good question. So I was about to say, if you go to a Part 61 school, you can easily get, all your certificates for 50K or something like that. Do you have to be Part 141 to work with Purdue Global?
No, you can be a Part 61 and still have this partnership. I will let you know that probably 75% of all of our partners do offer a 141.
Okay.
But we'll equally look at a partnership that's 61 only.
Got it. I think we answered this question already as well, but from Tom, let's see, so what's required for the flight school of implementation? So I think we went over that, but just to reiterate, I think we have to get in contact with you is the main thing. Then I think there's might be a few forms, and that's really about it.
Well,
I'm going to show
right there. That's right. We're going to have a conversation. I might even come out to your flight school to visit. And you're going to fill out a questionnaire, and there will be a contract to sign. So there is actually an education alliance agreement. It's not a long contract. It's basically a page and a half that reflects the arrangement. It's pretty straightforward, and I've never had an issue with a flight school not really wanting to sign the agreement. It's pretty straightforward.
Got it. So we're towards the end of our hour here. I know we started just a few minutes late, but we are to the top of the hour here. I'm going to give you the floor for maybe a couple minutes, and then I'm going to do my own pitch. Any last call to actions to flight schools, to students out there that you might have, Andrew? Any last words you want to give to the audience before we end it over here?
Yeah, Tim, I certainly appreciated this opportunity to reach out to these flight schools. I will be at the FASANA show in a couple of weeks, Flight School Association of North America. It's being held in Orlando this year. So perhaps I'll have a chance to meet some of you at the FASANA show as well. If you are planning to go to the show, feel free to reach out to me in advance so I know to look for you. We can even set up a meeting. And I look forward to exploring opportunities with all flight schools that have a decent sized fleet and really embrace the ideals that we went over in this conversation. I tend to avoid having multiple flight schools at the same airport. That being said, I will entertain the idea, especially if one is a 61 and one is a 141. So that could make sense, having those two flight schools at the same airport. So I hope that helps our viewer, and I look forward to having them reach out to me and having conversations. And Tim, thank you immensely.
Yeah, thank you for being a special guest here on our podcast. I try to do this at least once a month, sometimes more frequently, depending, how we go. But at least, one maximum is one per week. I can't do any more than one per week. Maybe if we get so much demand, we'll start doing more frequently. But if you are a flight school Or if you are a business that operates in the aviation market and you want to hop onto this podcast, I highly recommend, first, yeah, go to rightruddermarketing.com, learn more about who we are, what my team does, how we help flight schools all across the world and also in America specifically, and get in contact with myself to become a guest, or let's say you're a flight school and you want to help train more pilots, you want to increase your fleet, you want to hire more CFIs. Send me a message at info at rightruddermarketing.com. We also have a direct line here. It's 314-804-1200. So you're going to be squawking VFR when you talk to me here. And you give us a call. And then, obviously, if you have any questions, you reach out to Andrew. We're very honored to have him on the podcast. And we'll see you guys next time. We actually have a webinar next week. We're going to be going over your 2025 marketing plan. So there's going to be an email going out probably after this episode or maybe tomorrow, kind of inviting all the people to it. So stay in contact, stay in our mailing list, go visit our website, visit Purdue Global, and go out and spread the good news of aviation. So we'll end here, and I'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys.